foreign, the presence of a foreign country or foreign military in your land. So that's the problem. So solution is to kick it out. So resistance and then kicked out, which was needed, of course, but that's not the solution. That does not treat the root cause of the problem, which Malik bin Nabi beautifully coined it as قابلية الاستعمار. You're being, what do you call, I mean, weak, so that you were occupied. So the problem is not the occupation itself. The problem was the weakness that made you target for occupation. Those root causes were not resolved. So the foreign armies were kicked out or withdrew, were replaced by government that in many countries they were worse than the occupation itself. Nothing has changed. Not much has changed. And believe it or not, in some places it changed to the worse. That people start saying that we were in better shape before. Anyway, second was the Islamic revival or awakening that also had very superficial diagnosis, that the problem is that Muslims have abandoned Islam. Nobody bothered to define Islam, but abandoned Islam means for majority of people at that time was abandoned the rituals of Islam. So people are not praying, and people are not, people are committing sins. So what's the solution? Solution is call them to Islam. And that happened. By the way, those of us who are old enough, they have seen mosques in Muslim countries that were, one, deserted, except very old people will go there probably because retired, they have nothing better to do. And also they were in very bad shape. Many mosques were in very bad shape. I mean, were not well maintained. The wudu area, the prayer area, etc., was not really, many mosques were not in good shape, especially in small towns or in villages, etc. Anyway, so what's the solution? Call people back to Islam, go to coffee shops and bars, etc., and tell people about the Akhirah and about Salah. You need to pray. So we get a lot of people praying. And mosques were established everywhere, and they became in very good shape. Nice carpets, air-conditioned wudu area, well-maintained, etc. A lot of people, then a lot of activities. And then when we had satellite TV, a lot of channels talking about Islam, a lot of tapes and literatures, books and tapes. And at that time, it was the cassette, before the CDs and DVDs, and then websites, a lot of Islamic websites, and then social medias, a lot of YouTubers and etc. But nothing has changed. Not much has changed. Why? Because again, the diagnoses were very superficial. People did not abandon Islam. People abandoned the mission of Islam. People abandoned the original Islam with the sense of mission and with maqasid, with the ultimate purposes and the overarching goals, etc. That was abandoned, and that was not revived. What was revived is the Islam that focused on rituals, and then that was deeply immersed in politics and in power struggle. So we went nowhere. Then we had the other third episode, which is I'm going to come back to this in a minute. The third episode is what we call the Arab Spring. People thought that the problem was these oppressive regimes, and they were told that if these governments are toppled, things will be fine. And so we have seen what happened. Especially there are in several countries, I mean, in some countries it did not go all the way to topple the regime, like Syria, for example, but in some countries, Tunisia, Yemen, Libya, Egypt, government were regimes were changed, toppled. But nothing has changed again, because that's not the problem. Again, the diagnosis was wrong. So we should really, if we did not learn from those lessons, if we're just still gonna be in, that's why I'm not excited about any protest in any Muslim countries if there is no vision for what is next. All right, we can rally the people, we can work for so long and get this guy or this regime down, and then what? Then we're gonna get into the power struggle, because what unifies most of those people now is this limited goal. It's like what they did with the in 2011. The opposition was unified for that goal, but immediately as soon as that goal is achieved, then we have power struggle again, because we don't have politicians, we don't have statesmen, we have people who are hungry and thirsty for power and for positions. We have people who think tribal, except that the tribe is now called party, political party, but all they care about is for their party to be in power. The hell with the country and with the people, they don't care. Those who are in power, they're ready to do whatever it takes, even destroy the whole country to stay in power. And those who are outside, who are not in power, they are ready also to do everything, and including destroying the country, to be in power. That's a terrible disease that is so widespread among in those countries, unfortunately. So it is about time that people realize that, like Brother Muhammad said, there is, without new understanding of Islam, one important thinker, actually, Shanqiti, I mean, was discussing with the brother. The brother told me that he said that do not talk about tajdeed anymore. Tajdeed is like renewal. It's like you have something and you just need to renew it or refresh. We need something new. He said it's not even renewal. We need something, which I've been saying for a long time, that the current versions of Islam, they are beyond repair. And what we need is a fresh understanding. That's one main component. And the second component, in parallel, what is needed is to develop and sell a national dream, a national project, a national vision for progress and prosperity and development. And so people will accept and believe that their country can be much better, can be ruled by just governments, can be there can be transparency, there can be equal opportunity, that these are not dreams. This is what the majority of people in the world now, or a lot of people in the world, they live this as a reality. So unless the people, the masses, unless this vision or dream is developed and sold to people, and they will be willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen, to turn that dream into reality. It's like what they did with independence. With independence, they were mobilized, the whole nation was mobilized, and they were able to get independence, because at a certain point in time, people believed, there are some pioneers who were able to develop this idea of independence and liberation and sell it to people, and people believed in it, and they were ready to do whatever it takes and pay any price to make it happen. And that's the only way anything can happen in any Muslim countries nowadays. There is otherwise you're gonna wait forever for a very inspiring, charismatic leader or a very or a strong party that will lead this. Other than that, it has to be grassroots. It has to be bottom up. And other than that, none of whatever you see happening in all Muslim countries nowadays, if you want to summarize in a couple of words, it's power struggle that will lead nowhere. Power struggle in a vicious cycle that will finish a cycle and then start another one. That's what is happening all the time. So it is about time that we should be really very realistic and pragmatic and realize that again, as Brother Muhammad said, things do not come with wishful thinking and daydreaming and those Islamic or religious misconception that Allah, God will take care of things and will be fine and things will improve and time is part of the solution, as they keep saying all the time. None of this is gonna do the job.
On the same note, we have like an example like Malaysia, where they were able to change because it was maybe not that advanced or backward country, but now they are kind of advanced. I believe the section you said about national dream, a plan, that's a great thing, because I think what happened is there, Mahathir Mohamad did is he looked at several things. Some of, I mean, one of them is nationality. They have different nationalities there. They have ethnicities. They have religions. So he made the law or the constitution. He changed it from like being biased to one side from the community to be equal. Everybody is equal in front of the law. So after that, I think that enabled everybody to feel they are equal and they start changing the country. After that, they have some development in agriculture and industry and other, and now look at them, they changed. But maybe on the side of thought, they still not that advanced, I would say. I don't have first-hand knowledge, but I can tell from what we can see from, I mean, there is nothing different in their country.
By the way, the success stories of Malaysia, Turkey, at least the first phase, Singapore, South Korea, China. I mean, all these countries have jumped from nowhere. I mean, some of them in the 60s, some of them in the 70s, 80s, 90s, etc. Almost the common thread is a leader who was able to sell a vision or a dream, has a vision first. Of course, you cannot give that which you don't have. A leader who had leader or as an individual or a party had a vision, inspiring vision. They were able to sell it to people. But unfortunately, I mean, the reality is that in most cases, there was some sort of dictatorship to make it happen. Most success stories in the phase of the takeoff, it was some sort of dictatorship. Some of them are open dictatorship. China and Deng Xiaoping was a dictator, of course. Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, dictator, open. I mean, these are not South Korea, the leader who ended up assassinated at the end and the coup, etc. But the one who led the takeoff was a dictator, open dictators. But some of them, like Erdogan and Mahathir Mohamad, was not. I mean, on paper it's democratic, but at the end of the day, it was like for a one-man show. I mean, so it's very unfortunate that's the only way it happened. So now you have two models. You have the grassroots model, which most liberation movement started like that, grew up organically and produced its own leaders. Like some core group start believing in this dream or this vision, and then start selling it, and then as it is growing, becomes more organized, and then will produce its own leaders. That's most liberation movements. That's how it happened. You cannot point to any single leader who led the liberation movement. Or on the other hand, the takeoff in most countries happened if you want to wait until you have a leader, inspiring, charismatic leader. I'm afraid that even if you have it, and you may wait forever to have it, even if you have it, will not be able to implement or to do that takeoff successfully if they don't have enough power. Most countries, democracy came after development, not before. But those countries succeeded after the takeoff, and things became much better. People did not accept dictatorship anymore. Said no, we can't. This kind of lifestyle and standard of living is not consistent with the dictatorship. And then they transitioned toward democracy, and those are the most successful countries, especially the model of South Korea and Singapore. It's takeoff and then transition to democracy. My assessment is that in most Muslim countries, if we're going to wait for the second model, we're going to wait forever. So we only have the first option.
Dr. Suhail,
Yes.
in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, we have foreign regional power interfering. We have Iran and we have Turkey. And I think we will disagree between each other, which one has positive intervention and negative intervention. But I think probably it is the only way for the Arab world right now. I don't think we have self-power to wake up. We need somebody from outside to help us.
Nobody's going to help you from outside. Countries are not charity organizations. Turkey, Iran, everybody, they have their own agenda. They have their own national interest. If we're going to wait for somebody to help us from outside, there's going to wait forever. It's not only Syria and Iraq. It's every Arab country is under some sort of control, regional or global, or some sort of control. None of them owns their own decisions or make their own decisions. There is no true independence in most. I know about Arab countries, but even in most Muslim countries, there is no true independence. It's very unfortunate. And that's probably the root cause of the problem, because if you if you are not truly independent, it means decisions are made somewhere else. And those who are making decisions, they're not going to make it for you. They're going to make it for their own best interest. And that's why we have seen a lot of time governments and even regimes, they change, but nothing changes on the ground, because it's the same soup, different bowl. It's the same policies, but the tools are changed, are replaced. So that's why without independence, and independence is not, it's not easy to achieve. I mean, unless you have really strong economy, very productive, industrial, because the economy nowadays in most Muslim countries is what they call it, very fragile and controlled by few families, or and it's not productive. It's not, first of all, when it comes to the industry, there is hardly any. except the very light industry. And without industrializations, you go nowhere. There is no economy. Even agriculture itself. Those countries, they're still doing agriculture with a very backward, primitive means and tools and methods. So it's a whole package. I mean, a whole package that is where independence is a key component, but prosperity and development and progress, that people believe that they can and they should have a country that is truly independent. Independent does not mean isolated. Nobody can be isolated in the world, and it's not even a good idea. Independent means that you are not completely dependent on the help and the loans and etc. of others. I mean, you deal on equal footing. You have something to export, and you have strong economy that is also varied. It's not like a country relying only on natural resources, another country relying only on tourism, another country that's very fragile. An economy that is robust and therefore allows you to deal on equal footing and then to pursue your interest. I'll tell you, for example, a country that I know, Tunisia, for example, they have to adopt the French education system, even though it's not the best in the world. They have to purchase the French cars, even though they are not the best in the world. If they have any work that needs to be done to explore for oil or gas or whatever, they have to hire French companies. What kind of independence is this? I mean, what kind of independence if you don't have that right to go and buy the Japanese cars or Korean and get companies from Brazil or from China or from US or anywhere, whoever gives you a better deal. And also when you want to sell your product, also you sell to the one who gives you, no, you have to sell to the European Union or to France, and you have to buy from them. So what kind of independence is this? And that's the case for most Muslim and Arab countries, unfortunately. So it has to be a package. It has to be a package, a revolution, but not revolution in terms of taking to the street and protesting, trying to topple the regime. It's a revolution in the mindset. It's a revolution of people regaining their self-confidence, having high aspirations or national dream that will mobilize them and unify them for a long time, not for a few weeks of protesting. When you put that dream or that end goal in mind, then no matter whatever you achieve in the way will not make you relax your efforts. You're just gonna say, okay, this is good achievement. We can celebrate it for a day or two, etc., and then let's move on next. So that's the mindset that needs to be created. But I don't believe in anything coming from outside. I don't believe even when people have disputes, internal disputes or domestic, they should not resort to anybody from outside, because as I said, whoever is going to come is not going to come to help. They're going to come to pursue their agenda. So it's you just have to, nobody's going to do the job for you. So unfortunately, the involvement, even the involvement of Turkey and Iran in that region of the world is not really very positive. Is not producing anything. Actually, a lot of time is making even things worse. So people, they have to realize that and domestic problems or national problems, they have to be resolved inside, and people, they have to take the initiative and should not remain spectators watching this power struggle going forever.
That's true. I mean, you see, like in the West, there's democracy inside, but when it comes to outside, when they look at Africa or in the Middle East or South Asia or something, they don't use the good intention. They look at their interest. In Africa, they look at the minerals and some of the expensive hidden gems in the earth. So they don't care about the people. They care about their own interest. And I can't blame them. I mean, somehow, but you blame the people themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we go back to the colonization. The root cause is the weakness. I mean, if people accept those kind of governments and regimes, which sell the country just for them to remain in power, that's what happened, by the way. There are some stories that are very painful. Some African countries are very rich and their people are suffering so much. Chad is one of them. Niger is one of the largest producers of uranium, but they get nothing out of it. Chad, they found so much oil exploited by foreign companies, a multinational company, and then the people get almost nothing for it. Of it. It's just bribes that goes to regimes to accept very unfair and just deals that they reap all the profits and they don't even do anything, even in terms of social responsibilities, basically like building schools or helping, never mind sharing the profit with the people. Yeah.
So there is the different model, which is Rwanda. After they were, killing each other, and it was like massive bloodshed there. But now I don't have a close look at it, but looks like they are changing. They have maybe a civil society now, and maybe they are kind of going to prosperity. I'm not sure. Do you have any
Rwanda is
analysis on that?
it's one of the most recent success stories. I think they have really true leadership in place, honest, sincere, patriot, and they are moving in the, I mean, actually it's like what happened, it's almost a miracle. A country that was doomed. Rwanda can be like the Korea of Africa, because even Korea was, people thought it was doomed after the Korean War. Actually, there is I think an American general who said that probably every country in the world can prosper except this country is gone. But Rwanda, same thing. Civil war, ethnic cleansing, claimed the lives of anywhere between 800,000 to 1 million people. You think this country is gone? I mean, they're going to be with hatred forever and revenge, and and that's by the way in the 90s, 94, and then now it's considered to be the cleanest country, African country. It is the easiest country in Africa to do business. No bureaucracy, no corruption, no bribery, nothing. You can get all your papers done in a couple hours. So yeah, I think it's moving in the right direction. If there is a will, there is a way. I mean, the الشعب يوما أراد الحياة. If the people, as I said, decide one day to change their conditions, and again they believe, and not you believe to the point that you're ready to pay any price for it. It's a dream. You know, the personal dreams. People, for example, who go to medical school, you cannot imagine the amount of sacrifice they make. I mean, starting from the beginning, these people, they have already a career, because to go to medical school, you have to have a bachelor degree somewhere. So they got the bachelor degree, they have a career, they're making good money. and they decide to go to medical school. It's that they say that it's their calling or their mission or their dream. They abandon their job, go back to study, and study what? Study something they have never studied before. Study science, because all of them are non-science major. Go study science. All the science that they did not study in their life, they will study it in 1 year. Take the MCAT, go and volunteer in hospitals and clinics to build your CV, apply to medical school, and then study for so many years. Very intensive, very accelerated courses, etc. Why? Because they have that dream. That's what keeps them going. They decided that they're going to achieve that dream, whatever it takes, and that's the key. I also use the Olympics athletes as an example. I'm sure if you pay attention, you see sometimes those Olympic athletes when they on the podium, they explode in emotions. You see a lot of tears in their eyes and very emotional moments. Why? Because it's a dream came true. And I read and watched documentaries about how those athletes are prepared. It's amazing. I mean, like every day, I think they practice 6 to 8 hours and very, very strict diet for years, doing that for years. And that's why what do they have in their mind? It's that moment on the podium. And when it happens, that's why they become so emotional. That's what should take place among those nations, is that the whole nation or the critical mass see that and believe in it and make it happen. I also use the example of Islamic centers here. Like most Islamic centers and Islamic schools in this country, they had very humble beginning, but it's a dream that people believed in, and then they decided to make it happen, whatever it takes. And I traveled crisscross the country and heard those stories of every Islamic center. Very inspiring how sometimes bunch of students with very limited resources in a college town, and they decide to build an Islamic center or to establish an Islamic center. And then they tell you about the phases and how when they had that, what you call the prototype or the small design of the mosque, and they have it and they keep looking at it and always dreaming to see it one day a reality. That's what keeps them going. And they were mobilized. Everybody did everything they can, reach out to anyone they can reach to, whether here or when they go back to their original country for a visit, and then talk to everybody, got the resources, build the Islamic centers or an Islamic school. So that level of mobilization and unity is required. And that's the first step. Don't tell me that let's mobilize now, get rid of this guy or this government or this regime, and then we'll figure out. There is no such thing. And by the way, it's not only me saying this. The masses are not accepting that anymore. And in no country this is going to happen. That's my estimate. In no country, people are going to repeat what they have done in the Arab Spring. That they go out and they keep protesting until they topple the regime without any idea about what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we learn from this lesson. There's something called in business, we call it lesson learned. After each project, we look at if we are successful, if we are under budget or over budget, or if there is the time we are late or not, something. I hope we have this mentality, the mentality of lesson learned, because we seen the big disaster that happened in first maybe in Syria, then Egypt, then Libya, then Tunis. It's really very disappointing. and hope people can learn and come up with with something, with the benefits, or with some good results from that.
Mhm.
But you need the mentality that can review the can have feedback and look and where is the error, we need to admit there is error. Like we have the Nahda in Tunis, or maybe Ikhwan in Egypt, and in Syria. I mean, there's lots of sectors. So they need to come back and be honest with themselves and start. Okay, let us see what went wrong, or what happened. What did we did, or what was the problem? Is it our thinking? Is it our we did things before without planning? Or I mean, this is not gonna be an easy solution, or it's gonna be maybe a generational process. It's gonna take a lot of thinking, a lot of people. Maybe the current people won't admit any mistakes. Maybe the next generation will. I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to think.
If I can ask this question, Dr. Suel, I don't, I think it's a tough question. Is our standing of Islam is the main reason why the Muslim world is backwards? Look at the Russian Federation. The Islamic country inside the Russian Federation, they are the worst country. I am talking about the Chechnya, the Dagestan, they are the worst. Look at the old Soviet Union, how the Latvian, the Baltic countries, they advanced, and the Muslim countries, Uzbekistan, the other Muslim country, backwards. And look, in America, we came to America, we opened masajid, Islamic centers, and we still backwards. Look at the churches, look at the masajid, and you see the difference, how we admin our centers. Is the understanding of our religion this the problem, or the main problem, or the only problem? Because our kids, they are looking to our religion, who born here. They think it's our religion the reason.
Of course, we can't say the religion is the reason, because
the understanding of the religion.
It's understanding and the commitment. But that also had already produced other results that are part of the problem. The mutilated understanding of Islam that is there now, and you can say understandings plural. The mutilated understandings of Islam has affected negatively the mindset and the personality of people. And that also became the problem. So we have complex problems at the roots of it. Definitely, it is the lack of proper understanding of Islam and lack of commitment. But now it had also that the lack of proper understanding had results or impacts that are now considered part of the problem, because now you have people who have a mindset that is not very ambitious. People are not very ambitious. People don't have the discipline to make things happen. People are so low aspirations, weak willpower, accepting or trying to preferring to adapt to the reality rather than changing it. All of these coming originally from that wrong understanding of Islam, the misconception of divine destiny or qada and qadar, the lot of misconception, tawakkul, etc. So religious misconception produced severe problems in the mindset and in the personality and the behavior and the thinking of people, and now we ended up in this case. Beautiful example you mentioned. It's same countries, they were under Soviet Union, And then they became independent, and some of them prospered and some lagged behind. Yeah. It's a combination, but definitely resolving the original root cause and rediscovering or bringing up a more inspiring and empowering understanding of Islam that focuses on the sense of mission, give people life mission and the purpose, give people, and emphasizing and reinforcing this idea that the Islam has overarching goals or ultimate purposes, reinforcing and strengthening the spiritual dimension, the moral dimension, the human dimension, so that you produce people with a coherent personality, very sound thinking. We don't have that now. A lot of damage has happened. Nowadays, the Salafi understanding of Islam is, of course, the dominant one. Even groups who say they are not Salafi, they're actually Salafi, without realizing, has caused a lot of damage to the way of people think and behave and do business. So some people, they divide the world into Muslims and non-Muslims, and that's very bad. This dichotomy is very bad. It kills that the sense of that, even though it's very emphasized in Islam, the sense that people, the humanity is essentially one family. So the moral dimension also, it's not strong. That's why even though we had people, so many people become practicing religion, but the morality and the morals and characters in the society did not improve. That's another dimension. The personal ambition was killed with this idea of this life is not important, just leave it on Allah, God will take care of things, etc. We killed that personal ambition. Our look at materialism, that we don't have that balanced look, that almost it became something that is bad. That's not true. Islam does not promote poverty, as many people are saying. So that's why I call it's a mutilated version, because the damage is so big. I mean, there are some essential elements in the religion, they were marginalized or eliminated, and you have very minor elements that were blown out of proportion, and we ended up with this current mess. So there is no question in my mind that nothing is going to change in the Muslim world until people change, and people will not change until their understanding of the religion will change. Because nowadays, even the ones who are not practicing Islam, their understanding of Islam is Salafi. The Salafi is the one that is literal, meaning the traditional, the rigid, etc., the one that is really not inspiring or empowering or motivating at all. So even why? Because that one school of thought or one view dominated. Unfortunately, because of the petrodollars, I mean, when it was backed up by so much money from the Gulf that produced free literatures, build the centers everywhere, or build them, and then send scholars, sponsor scholars everywhere, and channels, etc. So it's a very dominant, unless, again, nothing is going to change until people change. That's a verse in Quran. And people, Muslims, will not change if their understanding of Islam is, it's not fixed, because it's beyond repair. It's simply replaced, because the current versions, all of them, the traditional, the political Islam, of course, those extremists and violent, and all of those versions are really are not going to lead people anywhere.
Dr. Cazale,
Yes.
it seems to me what you're talking about is a system of education. And the two elements that you really have been speaking about is this ability to use our intellect to solve problems, to invent new things, new technologies, and so forth. And then there's the ethical or democratic element, and that needs to come along with it, that these two elements are what combine to make the kind of individual you're talking about, someone who is thinks clearly, thinks rationally, has ethical principles, has vision of democracy. That kind of individual seems to need you develop through a particular education system.
Mm-hmm.
And so the kind of education, it seemed to me, education, particularly at the university level, is where an emphasis should be to make the kind of changes that I'm hearing you're talking about. That's
absolutely true. And referring back to Brother Muhammad's example of Malaysia, actually, the Mahathir Mohamad himself, the guy, the leader who led this takeoff of Malaysia, said that when he was asked, "What did you do?" He said, "I didn't do anything. I changed the education system, and the education system produced different people, produced those Malaysian who made this happen." I mean, just to say and in no countries, no nation has succeeded without two major requirements. One is overhaul of the education system, and second, fighting corruption. The first will produce the right people with the right thinking, critical thinking, objective thinking, people who are not really emotional or tribal or limited or narrow, people who think rationally, etc. That's education system. And then you have fighting corruption, because when you fight corruption, you leave only one door, which is the meritocracy, which is you just have to earn it. And that's where you push people to compete, to do better rather than try to look for shortcuts and look for the crooked ways. So you will have competition in schools, competition, fair competition in business, fair competition everywhere, and that will produce the best of people, the best out of people. Because so I have all the success stories I read, you can find these two elements are always there. I remember reading about this Korean leader. He was, by the way, the father of the Korean president, unfortunately, who was caught with corruption and was removed from power. Her father was the one who led the takeoff of South Korea. I remember reading when he said that our people must learn. They told him people are hungry, and there are after the Korean War. He said they should learn even in the streets. And if you go online or YouTube, you will see that Korean teachers teaching students in the streets. It's like blackboard, and they're teaching in the streets while people, at the same time, there was long lines of people waiting to have just in soup kitchens, just to get something to eat. So you're right. And Malaysia, I mentioned Malaysia, how and other countries, education system makes big difference, and the education system, unfortunately, in majority of Muslim countries nowadays, and in all Arab countries, it's produced the subdued individual who is either not ambitious, or if they are ambitious, they want to achieve their ambition with crooked ways, shortcuts. So, and does not produce someone who think independently, think rationally, think critically. There are a lot of taboos. Believe it or not, until now, in most Arab countries, and I think probably all of them. Even sexual education is not there, and people they're not educated, and that is causing tremendous problems in families and spousal relationship and etc. Because when people are not educated the proper way, they try to go for in the wrong sources, like online or their friends, etc., and then they end up messed up completely. Just one example, just to mention an example. Of course, political freedom or political discussion or etc. is not there. It's the current educational system is really terrible, and believe it or not, in many countries it's getting even worse than before. It's not even did not stay as it was. It's even getting worse. Going back also to what Brother Muhammad mentioned earlier, taking lessons. It's a very Islamic approach, by the way. It's a very Islamic approach that we are not adopting. Taking responsibility and taking lessons. The Quran is full of verses that were revealed after an incident. And it gives some time for Muslims to contemplate and reflect and think, and then Quran is revealed just to train them into this idea of learning your lessons. If reflecting and learning your lessons, you see at least the major incident. After every major incident, there was Quran revealed. And that was for me was a training to train these minds to think that whatever happens in life, you have to sit down and think. It's not only in business or companies or institution, organizations, it's even in your personal life. Whatever happens, you just have to learn lessons so that you don't repeat mistakes. Learning lessons. And the thing that you see, unfortunately, very common in most Muslim countries is the same mistakes repeated sometimes by the same people. Why? Because there is no lessons learned, there is no documentation, there is no accountability, there is no evaluation, then nothing. So it's very Islamic approach. If you only have yourself to blame. The Islamic approach calls on us to accept responsibility and to learn lessons from everything. Actually, it calls on us to learn lessons from others. لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ. Learn lessons from others, either in history or even in contemporary. There were lessons in their stories. لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ. So lessons. Accept responsibility for your reality. You are where you are because of what you have done. What they say, you reap what you sow. تحصد ما تزرع. You are where you are because of what you have done and because of what you have failed to do. And you accept responsibility for changing reality. And we should close this door once forever. This idea that you always have to adapt. Things get worse and you have to adapt to it. And what really puzzles me is that people don't realize in those countries that you are suffering not because of natural disasters. You are suffering because of injustice and corruption, which means that you don't have to accept it. You don't have to adapt to that reality. You should also only think about changing it the right way with the minimum cost, etc., but changing rather than adapting. That's major change to the mindset and to the personality of Muslims that need to happen. Accept responsibility for what happens to you. Accept responsibility for changing your reality. No denial, no blame game, no excuses, nothing. Just accept responsibility for your reality and accept responsibility for changing it. And then the right approach is not patchwork, is not denial. The right approach is get to the bottom of it. Find the root causes and solve the problem. Don't look for painkillers. Don't look for patchwork, because that's not going to do it.
Dr. Suhail, what is the main difference between the Arab universities and American universities? Damascus University 100 years ago, they were probably one of the top 100 university of the world 100 years ago. Right now, probably they are in the end of the line. What is the main difference right now?
I mean, the university is very advanced for us. I mean, if you want to talk about Muslim countries, talk about elementary and high school, why it is bad. Because university can never flourish in Muslim countries, because university is the beacon of freedom. Unless people are free, that's only in free countries and free societies. Because when you talk about university, you talk about research, you talk about scholarships, you talk about that can flourish only in an environment of freedom. But in oppressive governments and regimes, none of this can happen. So we're talking even the university level is hopeless for a university to flourish under in a backward society. And especially, I mean, backward society, that's fine, because university can spearhead and lead and pioneer the progress of a society. But the problem, it cannot do it if there is no freedom. Intellectual freedom nowadays in many Muslim countries, forget about even science. Anything that you're going to do, you need so many approvals, and there are no grants. And then you have to be politically correct if you're going to publish something. That kills creativity. So corruption and oppression kills creativity, kills competition, kills the ambition, and university can flourish only in environment like that. I mean, I know that in some centralized government there is some advanced universities, but that's the exception. That's not the norm. In this country, for example, professors, faculty, researchers are totally free about what they think, what they publish, what they do, no interference whatsoever. Universities can do their job and can thrive only in an environment of freedom. So if you're looking for one main reason, freedom.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Vanrushi. Regarding the question about universities and their role, a few years ago, I think the U.S. went into a recession. A lot of people lost their jobs, and the government quickly, moved in and instructed the community colleges, universities, basically to set up programs to have people learn new jobs. So, and the government, the federal government tied it to, grants. Okay, you need to do this in order to continue to get the grants. So the reason I bring this up is because here in the U.S. And probably in other Western countries, is whenever there's like retooling that is needed, governments go to the universities and colleges, basically re-educating people. In our countries, Brother Abu Abdullah mentioned, the University of Damascus, I don't think they were ever instructed to, retool, to basically re-educate people by the government. So education is key, and Brother Hugh brought it up a few minutes ago. I remember really, every now and then I see these commercials back in probably the 60s or 70s. I think they were filmed. Basically, and these were basically showed on TV. They were educating people here in the U.S. how to behave, what to do, how to behave, and what to do in an airport when they get to an airport. What to do at the check-in counter, how to line up. There was another commercial I saw. It was probably a public service announcement. Back then, they were probably considered PSAs. How to behave in a public pool. In our, in Muslim countries, you rarely see these educational videos. I think it's key. I mean, it's part of basically, if there's a will, there's a way. I don't think there's a will, unfortunately, in the Muslim countries. Otherwise, they would have found a way to re-educate people.
There is no will from government, and there is no will from society. I mean, these countries and societies, unfortunately, they are trapped. They are trapped in a very comfort zone, in a very vicious cycle that became comfort zone. There is no potential, or at least clear light out of this tunnel. If you think about it, most countries, when they decline comprehensively, meaning everything declines. And same thing would happen when they take off, when they any renaissance that happened, also it's comprehensive, because all these things are related. Education system is related to the mindset, is related to, it's all, the society is it's like a web of things that are so much related. So we have seen it time and again, when there is a decline, there is a comprehensive decline. And also the same thing when things start to take off or start to improve, because they feed all the components of the society, they feed into it, they feed into one another. So that's what explains that wherever you look, or from any angle, you see things are not working. Why? Because the decline is really massive and complete. And that's why I personally don't believe in any single solution. Like somebody say, if we do this, things will work out. Unless there is a vision or a plan or a project that will bring these people together. I mean, that state of mobilization and unity, for a cause or for a dream or for a vision to make it happen. That's where you see things when you turn things around. The same people, when they have a dream, they change completely. And when there is a system that is transparent and fair, etc., they change completely. So it's like two phases, the airplane, it's a takeoff and then cruising. In the takeoff, you need that vision and rallying cause or dream. And then in cruising, you need that system of fairness and transparency and equal opportunity and fair competition, etc. None of this is there. So anybody who comes to diagnose this deep and complex problems in a superficial way, or and then come up, until now you have, unfortunately, very highly educated people in Tunisia say, if we get rid of this guy and we have an election, parliamentary election and presidential election, things will work out. It's really laughable. It's laughable, and feel bad for people who think who come to very complex problems, and then they have this very superficial and simple diagnosis and solutioning. So there is a book that the title is Why Nations Fail. Why Nations Fail. By the way, there is a line of books that I recommend everybody to try to find and look for them and read them. Read as much as you can. It's about the rise and fall of nations. I think the whole thing started with probably a prominent book by was it Michael Kennedy or Paul Kennedy, The Rise and Fall of Great or of Superpower or Great Power or something. And then you have so many books were written in this that basically study the reasons what makes a society thrive and prosper and what makes society decline. One of them is this book titled Why Nations Fail. This is an American sociologist who went to the south of United States, to the borders with Mexico, and studied people who were split between part of them were came under United States and other came under Mexico. It's the same tribe, same people. And he kept studying why the ones in the United States, they prospered, they thrived, they excelled, they etc. And why their counterpart, I mean, same people. I mean, actually, they were cousins even. They basically, they didn't go anywhere. And then he came up with these ideas that basically, when you have equal opportunities, when you have fair competition, when you have this, people thrive. It's the same people. It's not genetic at all. He refuted this idea with his study, this idea of genetic, because these are the same people. So, but these people, they found that when they work hard, they get the rewards of that hard work, and they climb the social ladder, they go up, and they can save and they can invest and they can start business and they can without having to bribe anybody and without being crippled by bureaucracy and corruption, and that's why they thrived. Wow.
If nobody has any other question, I think we can meet next Sunday, inshallah, at noon.
Allah.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.